My name is Laney Fight, and I'm an admissions counselor here at Simpson College. I just graduated from Simpson in May and transitioned into this role. And we're here to talk to you about the FAFSA workshop. So I'll turn it over to Carla, and she can introduce herself and start.
Perfect. Welcome, everyone. My name is Carla Gilson. I work at Simpson in the financial aid office. I've been at Simpson for 14 years. I've been in financial aid for 18 years. So I love what I do. I love meeting with the students, helping with financial aid. So I'm here to help, and I'm glad you're joining us. So this is the FAFSA workshop. We're just going to be going over some basic information regarding the 2021-2022 FAFSA that you'll be completing. So the FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. When you fill this out, you are applying for federal and state grants and work study eligibility and federal loan eligibility. It is completely free to fill out. So I recommend doing it. Even if you don't think you're going to qualify for anything, I recommend completing the FAFSA. You never know if you want to at least borrow some federal loans. Okay, so the FAFSA application, it is open right now. It opened October 1st for the 2021-2022 academic year. Different colleges may have varying deadlines. Here at Simpson, I say the sooner the better. Fill it out just as soon as you can. To qualify for state funds, you want to make sure you have the FAFSA done by July 1st. That is the state of Iowa deadline. When you do this, you're going to use your 2019 federal tax return. So even if you wait to fill the FAFSA out until next year and your 2020 taxes are completed, you're still going to use your 2019 federal tax return when you're doing this. You are required to if you're doing it for the 21-22 academic year. You're going to fill it out online. There's the website, studentaid.gov, federalstudentaid.gov. When you fill it out, you will want to have an FSA user ID and password. So you will register for that first. I would go ahead and get that first. And you're going to do that at FSAIDED.gov. Sorry, that's a long website. And the student's going to have their own FSA ID. And then if you're dependent, the parent is going to have their own FSA username and password. So do that first. It's important to remember that the student has to have their own, the parent has to have their own. And you have to register with different email addresses. So you can't use the same email address to register for the student FSA ID and the parent FSA ID. You need to use different email addresses because if you use the same one, it will think that there could be an identity theft problem, that someone's trying to get one if you already have one created. You're going to want to write this down and you're going to want to save it because you're going to use this FSA ID. The student is going to use it to fill out other financial aid documents going forward, like federal loan documents online, and when you renew your FAFSA every year. So make sure you write it down, keep it in a safe place, so you have it available when you need it. Make sure you know you have to do a FAFSA every year. Now, once you complete the initial FAFSA, the renewal FAFSAs are much easier. It's going to pre-populate some of that demographic information that you initially fill out on the FAFSA. So you do have to do it every year. And I don't know if I mentioned this before, but the FSA user ID and password, that serves as your electronic signature. So that's why you want to get that first. You can get that the same day you're doing your FAFSA, but that's the purpose of the FSA ID. I think I skipped that over, skipped saying that the first time. So let's go to the next slide and talk a little bit about a checklist, what you want to have available when you do the FAFSA. You want to make sure you have your social security number because you will be entering that onto the form. Your driver's license, you again will need that information. You'll enter that on the form. Your W-2 forms from 2019, since we're talking about the 21-22 FAFSA. any other records of any money you earned from working, because it is going to ask those questions. If you filed a tax return for 2019, you want to have a copy of your federal tax return along with all the schedules that you filed with that return. Any untaxed income, payments to tax-deferred pensions and savings plan, tax-exempt interest, any child support you received during the calendar year 2019, you're going to want to make sure you have that available because it's going to ask you all those questions on the form. Any taxable earnings, if you happen to work in a federal work-study job, records of those earnings, because it specifically asks if you had any earnings from a federal work-study job. Records, current bank statements. It's going to want to know what you, or it may ask you what you currently have in cash, savings, and checking, so you'll want to have that available. Current business and investment information, including business and farm records, stocks, bonds, other investments. Make sure you look at the FAFSA instructions carefully. There's a lot of good information as far as what you have to include when it talks about your investments. If you own a business or an investment farm, it specifically says when you do have to include that information and when you don't. You may be exempt from including a small business if it has so many employees or not so many. I think it's like 100 employees or less, but it says exactly on the instructions. Family farm, it talks about if you have to include that or not. If you live on and operate the farm and it's a family farm, then you more than likely do not have to include that. So make sure you're really looking at the instructions when you're going through the FAFSA because they're very helpful. Grants and scholarship aid that were included in your 2019 adjusted gross income. If you do have any of this, make sure you know how much that was. That should be in your tax record. This is very rare. This is saying in 2019 or on your 2019 tax return, did you have any scholarship or grant aid that you had to report as income? This does not happen very often, but if you happen to have that, you'll want to have that amount so you can enter it. I think I've covered everything on that. The only other thing I'll say is when you're doing the FAFSA, make sure when it when it says student, you're filling out student information, and when it says parent, you're filling out parent information. That's another thing you'll want to be careful about. So you're entering the right information on the form for whoever it applies for. Okay, I think we can move on to the next slide. Again, apply early. You should have your 2019 taxes done, hopefully. I'm sure they've been done for a while, so it should be easy to apply online. Makes it a lot easier, faster. Use the IRS data retrieval tool. So what this is you can automatically have your tax information populated into the FAFSA form when you're doing it. It's very helpful. And that way you know that you're answering the questions correctly. When you use the IRS data retrieval tool, it's going to say you're leaving the FAFSA site, you're going out to the IRS site. It's going to retrieve the information from the IRS site, bring it back into the FAFSA, and then it will tell you what lines it's transferring into the FAFSA. It will not show you numbers. It will all be masked. But it knows where to apply it on the FAFSA. And then you'll return back to the FAFSA form. Again, you won't be able to see the actual numbers that are transferred in. For security, they mask it, but it makes it a lot easier because you know it's pulling exactly what it needs to. And if you're selected for verification, it makes it a little bit easier too. Complete all the blanks unless you are told to leave it blank. So make sure that you are answering all the questions. The FAFSA does have skip logic, so if you answer a question a certain way and you don't need to answer future questions, it's going to know that on the form, and it's going to skip any questions that you do not need to answer. We kind of already talked about this, but make sure you read all the instructions. It's going to tell you exactly what that question is looking for. What if you're not doing the data retrieval tool and you're looking at your actual tax return, it's going to tell you what line of the tax return to look at so you know what number to plug in. And just remember that we're here to help. We help with a lot of FAFSAs. So if you have questions, please reach out to us. That's what we're here for. And our office number is on there as well as our general email. So make sure you reach out to us with any questions. Okay, common mistakes to avoid. Again, we talked about this. Don't leave any blank fields. Make sure you're answering all of the questions on the form. If you can skip it, it's going to let you. Do not use commas or decimal points. There's no cents on the FAFSA. So if you're needing to answer a question and there's cents involved, you're going to round to the nearest whole dollar. There's no cents that you're going to enter on the FAFSA. Social Security number, it's very important that you enter this correctly, because what it does is it goes out and does a match against your Social Security number and your name, and it does a match to say, yes, this person Social Security number and name match. If you enter it wrong, then it's not going to be able, you're going to have to basically do a new FAFSA, and it causes a lot of problems. So I would double, triple check that the Social Security number you entered is correct for the student, that you're entering the right number, right number. Use your full or legal name, again, the one that's tied with your Social Security number. Use your permanent address, your permanent home address when you're doing the form. Entering the wrong federal income tax paid amount. This one can be tricky for some reason. A lot of people want to enter a different number, but look exactly at the line it's telling you to enter if you're not using the data retrieval tool. It will tell you exactly what line, and it will say if you have anything on Schedule 2 to subtract it out. If you didn't file a Schedule 2, then obviously you're just going to enter on the what's on the line item it's asking for. If you're doing the data retrieval tool and you're trying to retrieve the information from the IRS, when you're looking at your tax return, make sure you enter the address on the tax return exactly as it appears on the tax return. So if street is abbreviated, you're going to want to abbreviate it when you're trying to do the data retrieval tool, because it's going to ask you for the address that you used on your tax return. If street is spelled out, you're going to want to spell it out. It just helps in retrieving the information. It seems like if you enter it exactly as it is on the tax return, it can retrieve it better. You might not be able to, not everyone's going to be able to use the data retrieval tool. So an example would be if your parent or parents filed a joint tax return, but they're now divorced, but they filed their 2019 tax return jointly, it's not going to be able to retrieve that. So you're going to have to enter it manually. But a couple tips with that. Adjusted gross income equals wages from work. A lot of people want to put, when it asks how much did you earn from working, they want to put in their adjusted gross income. So there's a separate question for adjusted gross income and income earned from work. So make sure you're entering those accordingly. Make sure you have the correct tax filing status. So that will appear on your tax return again. And students' marital status incorrectly. For some reason, that's a common mistake. So make sure, again, when it's talking about the student, you're entering it for the student. When it's talking about parent, you're entering that as a parent question. But those are some common mistakes that we see and the federal government has pointed out. So just make sure that you're being careful on those things. Some additional common mistakes: parental marital status incorrectly, failure to use both parents' information. So who counts as a parent on the FAFSA? When you're doing the FAFSA, it's going to want, if your parents are divorced or separated, the parent that you lived with more during the past 12 months. So if that biological parent is remarried, then you're going to answer the questions about that biological parent and step parent. It does not matter who claims them on the tax return. A lot of people think they need to use the parent that claimed them on the tax return, and that is not the case. When we're talking about the FAFSA, you're going to use the parent that you lived with more during the past 12 months, and if that parent happens to be remarried, then you're going to use that biological parent and step parent's information. Failure to report unborn children. So you can count an unborn child in the number of household. A lot of people don't know that they can do that, but if there's going to be a child that's going to be born, you can count them as a number in household. And also remember to count yourself, the student, as a number in household. It's asking for the total in household, including you, parents, and any siblings that are living at home or other people that live there that parents provide more than half of their support. And failure to sign and date the FAFSA by both the student and a parent. That's why it's important to get those FSA IDs, because it makes it really easy to sign as the student and the parent electronically if you have those. Let's see, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I missed. The FAFSA is completely free to fill out. So make sure that you are not paying to do the FAFSA. Use the website that is in this presentation to do the FAFSA. Unfortunately, there are sites out there that charge money, and you should not pay to do the FAFSA. It is completely free to do the FAFSA. The other thing you want to make sure you know is you have to enter the FAFSA information based off of your 2019 tax information, but we realize things change. So if something has changed with the financial situation, do the FAFSA based off of the 2019 tax information, and then contact the financial aid office if there are any changes. We have the ability to override the FAFSA in what's called a professional judgment if the circumstances have changed. So you'll want to reach out to our office or any financial aid office if you're looking at different schools, because each school has the ability to do this. So if we do it at Simpson, that doesn't mean another school is going to see it. They have to do their own professional judgment. But we know things change, so make sure you're communicating with us, with the financial aid office at whatever school, if it isn't Simpson, so we can adjust for those things. We know, especially with COVID-19, we know that loss of income could be a big factor that a lot of people are dealing with, high medical expenses, any of those things you're going to want to contact our office. Okay, so let's talk about a timeline as far as what happens after you do the FAFSA. Again, and you can go to the next slide if you want. You can start doing the FAFSA as early as October 1st. So do it now if you can, get it out of the way. Be sure to list Simpson on there. You can list quite a few schools on there. I guess it used to be up to 6, it maybe changed. Simpson school code is 001887, but if you're interested in any other schools, you're going to want to be sure to put their school code on there. Make sure you have completed the application for admissions to Simpson. Upon acceptance, you will learn of your academic scholarships. You'll get an acceptance letter. You can also go to our website to check out a scholarship matrix to see how much you may qualify for in academic scholarships from Simpson. Make sure you visit Simpson. We're taking in-person visits, virtual visits. We're practicing social distancing and wearing our masks. So we would love to have you either virtually or on campus to talk to you more about Simpson and the financial aid process. When we do get your FAFSA, if we need any additional paperwork, we'll reach out to you. If your FAFSA is selected for verification, or if there's another flag that popped up on the FAFSA, we'll send you a letter, we'll let you know. We're always here to help, so if you get something from us and you don't understand it, be sure to reach out to us. And if we have your FAFSA and you've applied for admissions, then we will send out financial aid packets January 15th of next year. Have all the information in there that you need to reference for what you're getting in a financial aid packet, out-of-pocket costs, and other helpful information regarding financial aid. All right, now we'll open it up for questions.
Yeah, so it looks like we have one question so far. The first one is, are there any differences between the FAFSA process for someone that is an in-state student and someone that is an out-of-state student, or would the process be the same?
As far as the FAFSA form, it would be the same. It's a federal general form, so it's not like Iowa has a different FAFSA form than another state. So the FAFSA form is going to be the same no matter what state you are in. It's just important to check for state deadlines. So in Iowa, you want to, again, I would do the FAFSA as soon as you can, but at the latest, you want to make sure you have it done before July 1st. And again, make sure you're using your 2019 tax information when you're doing the FAFSA for the 2021-22 academic year.
Perfect. And then just one other question as well. So if students or parents have any questions in the future, so you said that they could contact our office, absolutely. But are there any other resources that are out there or, that they may be able to use as well?
Absolutely. The website where you go to do the FAFSA, studentaid.gov, has a lot of information about federal student aid. You can pretty much find information about what loans may be available, what financial aid looks like, different types, what the grants mean, all that. So I would say that's a good resource. The Iowa College Student Aid Commission has a website here in Iowa that is very helpful regarding our state grants. So I would check out that website. And then, of course, our website. We have a lot of information on our website on the financial aid side that is helpful too. So I would check out all those resources and also contact our office with any questions via email, phone call, or we can even set up a Zoom meeting, individual Zoom meeting, and go through information that way too. Happy to do that.
Thank you all for joining. We appreciate it. And, it makes our night. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.